The SaaS Universe podcast is brought to you by Efficient Capital Labs. Realize your future revenue today.
In the golden days of 2007, when the world still shimmered with promise, a young and ambitious Richie graduated from the prestigious IIT Madras with an engineering degree. Now, little did Richie know that these early days would shape the trailblazer he was destined to become. This is the story of Richie, a visionary on a mission to disrupt the B2B landscape and leave an indelible mark on the SaaS world with his revolutionary startup, PriceLabs. But to truly understand the birthplace of PriceLabs, we must rewind and delve into Richie's personal journey.
I did metallurgical engineering from IIT Madras. This was back in 2007, so the world was still golden. The year after, the end of 2008, early 2009 is when it went to all helter-skelter. I graduated from 2007, so it was like one of the best years to graduate, right at the peak of where the world was. And so one of the best jobs that you could get coming out of college, if you wanted to continue to be in an engineering domain, was going to Shell. And you have to take into account that this is 2007. At least in India, there were like Flipkart, I think, had just started maybe, or something like an Ola had just started. Doing a startup was not so-called sexy. None of us knew. Like, I knew the word startup, but didn't really know it meant anything. In India at that time, by that time, no one had scaled anything. I don't even think we called it startups back then, right? We called it businesses, starting a business. So one of the best things that you could do if you wanted to stick to your engineering domain, and I liked my engineering domain, was to go work for Shell, which was a global player. You'd work around the globe, had the best technology, not necessarily the computers and the software and SaaS that we deal with, but just technology in general, hardcore engineering technology. And so it was kind of a no-brainer of a decision to go work for Shell at that time. The alternates were local steel players in India, which weren't very exciting in terms of pay or work, and cities. They'd be in cities that are not very exciting. And Shell was excited enough to saying, hey, first job you'd get in Amsterdam. And it was like, who's going to say no to that? I think I'd worked in 7 or 8 geographies with Shell in a span of 5 years.
In the vast expanse of Richie's career, his time at Shell served as the foundation upon which his journey unfolded. Within Shell, Richie made a seamless transition to the business domain, a parallel to the program management landscape of the SaaS world. After making a mark at Shell, Richie's journey took an exciting turn as he ventured into new territory at Siemens. It was a moment of discovery and introspection as he delved into the intricate workings of the investment landscape.
After a couple of years of working at Shell, I'd done the technical domain for some time, and I'd found some limitations in that role. And I'd moved to a business domain within Shell, which is a very equivalent in SaaS world would be doing program management. The difference is like there you're doing project engineering for like $1 billion project. You're installing something in some country, or like you're installing a new plant. I remember I was working on plant that we were working in Australia, which was like an $8 billion project, right? So everything in Shell was far too big. So I moved into project engineering, did that for a couple of years, and that's how I got my exposure to business. So I went to Kellogg for my MBA between 2012 to 2014. And while I was at Kellogg, that's when, as a part of one of the core curriculum, I did an internship with Siemens Venture Capital for 3 months to try out what does it mean to do investments. Or not do investments, but explore what does it mean to explore investments.
Now, as Richie navigated through different roles encompassing technical expertise, business acumen, and even delving into the world of venture capitalists, a shift in his mindset started to occur. Throughout his transformative journey, the seeds of entrepreneurship were subtly planted, their roots steadily growing stronger. Richie found himself contemplating the possibility of starting his own company. a notion that began to take root amidst his diverse experiences.
From a family where my father is not involved in business, but his father was involved in business. My maternal grandfather runs a business. So there was some affinity to business already. And so there are some people in our family who do businesses. My parents don't. They're typical working class folks. So even back in college, I remember my BTech project that I was working on, and I was always interested in what is the commercial applicability of what I'm doing as my BTech project. Like, what more can we do with this? Whatever we worked on, we did produce a research paper on this, but then we were also like, hey, how can we actually make it commercially viable? And in parts to credit about the research professor that I was working with, S.S. Bhattacharya, he was also very commercially minded in that sense. So I think that was the first time I actually thought about doing something as a business, which was like a BTech project. But at the time, did not have experience, and plus, if you've been in college, there's so many more distractions. It was just a sparkle of an idea. We should do something, but nothing else. I was lucky to find some friends who were always like, let's do something, or let's tinker with something. Like, hey, maybe like a couple of friends, let's pull in, let's think about opening up a restaurant. Not necessarily thinking about tech at that time. After a bunch of us got into our MBA schools, we ran like an MBA prep service for some time. So there was always that little bit of like, if there is a resource and if you can find something, can you build a business out of it? That was always there. Does that make sense?
The transition from the tech world to the realm of strategy marked a significant shift for Richie, as he embraced a completely different landscape, moving from one world to another with their unique dynamics and challenges was no small feat. It represented a bold step into uncharted territory where Richie had to adapt his skills and mindset.
It was very hard. I think Bain was the best and the most difficult experience of my life. The best because it was like, for both reasons, like it was incredibly challenging. But the effectiveness with which folks at Bain communicated, like from a problem to solution, was incredible, was just incredible. And so personally, I found that like extremely great, right? Even at business school, I didn't learn as much as I learned in 2 years in Bain, how to take a problem and how to actually dissociate it and come up with what is the actual problem between problems. So to put it in perspective, before Bain, if I was to think about problems, I would think about problems in writing a paragraph, writing some bullets, etc. Post Bain, I now think about problems in tree charts. This is what I want to solve. These are the two potential ways that I can solve. What is the plus and minus of this? Rather than thinking in paragraphs, now my brain operates in more tree charts. And so that was a very, very big shift that Bain enabled. The reason why it was incredibly difficult though is I was coming from that technology field where, I was always in the field, like limited time spent in front of a computer, like 6 hours out of 8 hours were like in the field or in a meeting, trying to communicate, trying to convince, or actually moving a valve, changing something, etc. in a field. And from there, going to being 8 to 10 hours in front of a computer, writing a PowerPoint or writing a doc, etc. was like incredibly challenging. This is like a complete shift. It is also a little bit harder to find the gratification in a consulting role immediately. In an engineering, in a field role, it is very easy, right? Because you own it, you do it, you get it done, etc. In a consulting role, you're suggesting to someone, but it's harder to find that gratification.
Richie's career trajectory took an intriguing turn as he transitioned from his consulting role at Bain to a directorial position at MindTickle. The shift was marked by a significant leap in responsibilities and influence within the organization. Going from a consulting background to a directorial level required Richie to draw upon his wealth of knowledge and experience, as well as his innate leadership qualities.
I think it was, for me, a little bit easier to piece together because I had been in action roles for 5 years before. At Shell, I'd done massive projects in an actionable role, of course, on field. And then at MBA, I'd picked up how to think about businesses, and at Bain, I'd built a toolkit of how to actually break down a problem. And so then the role at MindTickle was in some ways a combination of all of these, but at a smaller company.
The story of PriceLabs begins during Richie's time at business school, where a humble idea took root and blossomed into something extraordinary. While working at Bain and pursuing his studies, PriceLabs quietly shimmered in the background, initially nothing more than a passion project. In the summer of 2014, PriceLabs emerged from the shadows, unveiled to the world as a free-to-use tool. With a logo and a website, they shared their creation, unaware of the transformative journey that lay ahead. Young and unburdened by extensive family responsibilities, they poured their evenings and weekends into building something remarkable.
We started up PriceLabs when I was at my business school. So all through when I was at Bain or while I was at Mindtickle, PriceLabs was still going in the background. It was a hobby project. It never started as a business in itself. At Kellogg, I was putting my house on Airbnb, and I think in India it wasn't as popular, but in US it was extremely popular to put a spare bed or a spare room on Airbnb. And so I was doing that, and I saw that I was pricing flat. Everyone around me was pricing flat, and that fundamentally didn't make sense to me. That I was pricing at $50, and so I was like, hey, I need to change how I price. I need to tweak how I price. And at the same time, one of my friends from IIT Madras was doing revenue management for United Airlines in Chicago. So as he was doing that, and we'd meet often, there's one thing that I think I'm good at is like looking at two things and saying, why can't we do this here? Looking at something, distilling it down to a fundamental, and then saying this fundamental can be applied in other places too. I've done this at Shell by like reading something about a technique that they used to implement in coal plants. I was doing that as a fun read, and I was like, if we can do this in a coal plant, why can't we do this in a refinery? And turns out like in 300 years of doing both of these, no one had taken this idea from here to there. And so in a very similar way, so coming back to this, like I was doing Airbnb, I was like, I'm pricing flat. And then I spoke to Anurag, who's one of my co-founders, and he was doing revenue management. I was like, you do this, why can't we do this here? Help me price my house better. And so then we went on a witch hunt, asking everyone around, saying, how do you price, or putting it on various forums? And they were like, not sure, but if you build something, let us know. And so we got another friend roped in, Sana, and we built a free tool because it was just like an exciting, fun thing to do. It was in the evenings work on a mathematical problem, and then a distribution problem. And maybe I was also coming out of business school where I had done all of these internships for free. So I was like, yeah, this is like fun, solving a challenge, solving a problem. And so we put it out as a free to use tool, not thinking that we were building a business. Of course, because I had gone to business school, we had given it a logo and we had a website and all of that, but not really thinking that we were building a business or wanting to build a business. We were all happy in our day jobs doing what we were doing, right? And in evenings on our weekends, like for fun, also we were all young, right, at the time. So limited family responsibilities. So yeah, like in the evenings or on weekends, like building this, that's when it started back in 2014.
As PriceLabs continued to evolve from a hobby project to a promising venture, the realization that they had struck a gold mine unfolded organically. It wasn't a pursuit they actively sought. Instead, it emerged naturally through their dedication and the recognition of its potential. Richie and his co-founders began to grasp the true potential of PriceLabs, recognizing that it had outgrown its status as a mere hobby project.
When we asked, and a bunch of people said, hey, if you build it, why don't you give it to us? And we put it out for free, and a lot of people all around the world started using it. We didn't even think about charging. We did that almost a year after we registered because our customers asked us, hey, why don't you charge money for this? But it came out in a little bit of a different conversation where it was a free to use product because we were like, yeah, like hobby project, right? We are enjoying doing this on the weekends and evenings, but our hobby became a business, and which also took a little bit of the fun away from it. But because a lot of people, as they started using it, they were like, hey, we have this problem. Can you solve this? Can you build this? Can you build that? Etc., etc. we'll get this done in the evening, or maybe next week, or maybe like 3 weeks later, or something like that. And they're like, you guys are always so slow. We love this product, and we're like, we do this for free. This is a hobby project. And they're like, take money from us, but do it faster. So that's kind of how we actually started charging for something. So almost 2 years after we had released the product is when we started charging for something, because our customer said charge for it.
In the timeline of PriceLabs, 2016 marked a significant turning point when the realization dawned that it was time to take the venture full-time. Throughout the initial years, Richie and his co-founders managed PriceLabs as a passion project alongside their primary jobs. Juggling their commitments, they nurtured and refined the venture, gradually laying the groundwork for its success. As PriceLabs continued to gain traction and generate interest, the demand for their services grew exponentially. The moment arrived when Richie and his co-founders faced a crucial decision: whether to continue treating PriceLabs as a side endeavor or to embrace it as a full-time pursuit.
We discussed it in 2016 as we started charging. We were like, hey, what do we do now? So this is no longer a hobby project. This is something that we actually are charging for. For that, think of it as you've put out a blog and now you're charging for it. At the time we discussed it, and we came to the conclusion that we didn't think that it was big enough. We were like, it's growing and we can grow it without actually leaving our jobs. We have to tell, of course, our employers that this is what we're doing, but we don't have to necessarily leave our jobs. That was literally the conversation. Then at some point, Anurag decided he was ready to leave, and so he left first, and then Sanay and I came in after. Like users, we probably had 1,000 or 1,500 users. If they were ready for it and if they were paying it, they were like, yeah, guys, this makes sense. It actually solves a problem and it's okay. We're okay to part ways with some money for us. And we also didn't overthink or think about that we need to complicate how much we need to charge, because we never started this with the idea of that we want to build $1 billion company. We wanted to charge fair. We had those conversations with our customers, came up with a fair point, and it wasn't like we have to make $100 million company. And all of us come from, this is a sad reality, but all three founders come from very humble backgrounds. So our needs and how much we wanted was very, very small.
Within the journey of PriceLabs, there came a pivotal moment when ambition ignited and realization struck that they had the potential to accomplish something remarkable. While PriceLabs had been nurtured as a passion project, driven by a genuine desire to make a difference, there was a point where Richie and his co-founders recognized the untapped possibilities and the impact they could have on a larger scale.
Late 2018 is where we realized that, hey, like now we have more work than we can get done on weekends and evenings between the three of us. We were lucky that the three of us were very complementary. I think we had 2 interns because we needed a first web page to be built, and none of us knew front end at the time. And then I learned how to code front end. And then number 2, we hired someone to get us some initial leads and get us some initial scripting, and intern. But that was it. Like we had, like, for the longest time, it was just the 3 of us building something. And then around mid 2018 is where we realized, like, okay, now it's getting out of hand. We're not being able to build as fast as our customers want us to, and what we think we need to, actually. So that's kind of when we had that trigger moment of saying we should be doing this full time.
Securing funding is often a crucial milestone in the journey of a startup, and PriceLabs was no exception. When the opportunity arose for Richie and his team to raise a substantial amount of money, they carefully considered the implications and weighed the potential benefits against the need to relinquish a portion of their ownership.
We had investor interest from, I want to say, 2016, 2017, where people wanted to learn about PriceLabs. I wouldn't necessarily say after learning they would have invested, but we had people who were reaching out to us and asking us about if we want to raise money, etc. A very promising part was a ton of our customers would say, hey guys, if you're ever raising money, tell us. We're also lucky in the world, in a way where a lot of our customers are fairly well-to-do. But I think we started having a serious conversation somewhere around mid of 2021. And in part, there were a couple of big reasons for it. One was we'd slowly realized that it's hard to find good talent without actually having a funding stamp, because it is very hard to judge a business without, like a private business, right? And so the only way you judge a private business today, like good talent judge private business today, is how much money have they raised. So that was one of the factors that played in. Oftentimes we'd get on calls with fantastic profiles and we'd be like, hey, we have this fantastic profile for you. And they'd be like, how much money have you raised? And we're like, we haven't. We're a profitable business. We don't need to raise money. And they'd be like, okay, no, I actually need to go to a company that is raising money, right? Or that has raised money. Clearly, your business is not valuable. So that was one of the big reasons for thinking about this. Number two was our team was already starting to grow quite a bit. And as the team continued to grow, we always wanted to be in a situation, in case something happens, we don't want to be in a place where because of money crunch, we have to let go of people. And I say that because of money crunch, because I am personally very comfortable and think businesses should let go of people based on performance. But because of money crunch is not a fair reason. We had enough number of people and enough payroll to saying, in case of a down scenario, we need to have capital in bank to be able to do that. And number three, the business was getting big enough where the three of us are first-time founders, and we needed more mature people in the team along with us to help us build in various scenarios. That was the third reason to think about this. Going back to a debt or a revenue-based financing, it didn't solve for the number three, which is in case of a down scenario, we should be able to sustain our team, and debt doesn't allow us to do that. So when COVID happened, what we do is we try to come up with the right price on any given day for a property, and that changes based on supply and demand. But when demand completely stops, which is what happened during lockdowns around the world, all of these customers are like, hey guys, like, we love your product, but there is no one booking. What do we pay you for? And so like in a matter of a month, our revenues dropped by 50%. Our user base dropped significantly, and it was in a matter of months. And that is how fickle the world can be. The good thing is 3 months later, all of them came back as some of the travel started. They were like, now your product has become absolutely crucial for us to have it, because the supply and demand patterns have completely changed compared to prior years, prior periods.
When people examined an organization, they naturally sought to understand its growth path. They wondered about the ideas, strategies, and plans that the company had in place to propel itself forward. As Richie was no stranger to being asked about the next 5 years for his company, he understood the natural curiosity surrounding its trajectory. But Richie realizes that predicting the precise course of the next 5 years was a daunting task. The reality was that the future held uncertainties and variables that could shape the company's growth trajectory.
If I asked you, what is your next 5 years, you're going to have an ambiguous answer. There is only one answer that I have, which is we're looking to grow. That's it. We'd continue to grow. Now, will we be able to grow at 100%? Will we be able to grow at 200%, 50%, 30%? I don't know the answer. The reality is market determines so much of the answer that you can't solve for it. Of course, we have our path, our wish list, right? We'd want to continue to grow 100% year on year, etc., etc. But if I did not grow 100% year on year because market let us down, will I be disappointed? No, I won't be disappointed. So we're looking to grow. Next 5 years, we're looking to put our best effort in to build a business. So as long as we are putting our best effort in, I think everything else is fine.
Richie's journey has been one of remarkable growth, resilience, and adaptability. From his early experiences in the technical domain at Shell to venturing into the business domain and exploring investments during his MBA, Richie consistently sought new challenges and opportunities for learning. The birth of PriceLabs as a hobby project during his business school days showcased his innate entrepreneurial spirit. What started as a simple solution to pricing inefficiencies on Airbnb grew into a successful business driven by his passion for solving problems and creating value. Richie's experiences highlight the power of seizing opportunities, stepping out in front of zones and embracing the unknown. As he continues to lead PriceLabs into the future, his commitment to growth, innovation, and empowering others remains unwavering. His journey serves as an inspiration for aspiring entrepreneurs and professionals. reminding us all of the possibilities that arise when we embrace change, remain resilient, and never stop pursuing our passions.
That's all for today, folks. Thank you for tuning into the SaaS Universe podcast. And remember, if you're looking for non-dilutive capital to help grow your business, Efficient Capital Labs is here to help. With their unique approach, you can receive up to 60% of your projected revenue as upfront capital, and all within just 3 days. So don't wait. Head to www.ecaplabs.com to learn more and get started today. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the show.